Oh yeah. How's it going, Aziz?
Hey, what's up, Josh?
I'm so excited. I've been looking forward to this chat or this interview for some time. You know, we've had bits and pieces of it over the last year, talking about it in the gym and life and overcoming obstacles and I think the thing that I found fascinating was your mindset and relationship to pain, and that sparked some really interesting conversations. So now we're going to do what we probably should do to all our brilliant stuff. We're gonna have it recorded and as a resource for other people to take advantage of. So I'm super stoked to get into this conversation again.
Me too, man. Yes, let's get controversial.
That's right. Let's make some wildly unsubstantiated claims about the body and the brain. So, uh, for people that don't know that much about you physically, let's break you down biomechanically, because you're a adult human male, and how old are you right now?
34.
34. So 34 years old, and you've been you've had a very unique set of experiences regarding the health, and where do you want to start, or can you tell us a little bit about your biological background?
Sure. I'll just give kind of a quick, broad, sweeping overview. But I was pretty athletic as a kid. Loved to play sports. Loved to be outside. Played tons of soccer. I was very athletic until I was 15 years old, and I was playing soccer just like I normally do. Woke up one morning, I stepped out of bed and put weight on my left foot, and my leg buckled out from underneath me. There was like a shooting pain up the leg into the buttock of my left side. And I just didn't think much of it. I was like, that's weird. Maybe it's an injury or something. But it persisted, and it just didn't go away. I had to like limp around when I walked, and I couldn't run without more shooting pain. And so after like a day or two, it became more kind of disturbing. So my parents started getting involved. I'm like, well, let's take him to a doctor. So I went to a doctor, and that began a 4-year period of going to doctors and not having any clear diagnosis as to what was going on. So during that time, age 15 to 19, I had to stop playing all sports, lost my identity as like an athlete. And I played on the soccer team and stuff, so I couldn't do that anymore.
Yes.
And then, not to mention just like chronic pain, which was very kind of wore away at my peace of mind, that sort of thing. Fortunately, I had really good friendships, which kind of helped me have a lot of humor and just still keep my head above water during that time. At age 19, I got a diagnosis of a fancy-sounding autoimmune disorder called ankylosing spondylitis, or AS, and they gave me a medication. The way that the medication was distributed was very interesting. We can get into that later, because my suspicion now is that it's a placebo. But it's something called Enbrel Intracept. It's basically something that works at a very unique place in your immune system to reduce the production of a very specific molecule in the pain pathway, the TNF necrosis factor, I think they call it.
Oh yeah. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly, right. I don't even know the details of it. There's something about getting something from the hamsters are harvested in the process. I don't know, some complex shit. And thankfully they made it, because that turned my life around. I mean, it took the pain from 7, 8 on a scale of 10, 7 to 8 per day, down to 0 to 2. And I was able to run. I was able to play soccer. I was able to do everything. But the legacy of the psychology from 15 to 19 of, if I use my body, it hurts, that stayed with me. So the doors opened up. I could do more. But what I found is I would do more and I would develop an injury. So nothing to do with the
Mechanics.
pain. Yeah, it would just be like, okay, now I'm going to do something with weights. Ow, my wrist hurts. Okay, now I'm going to do this. Ow, my neck hurts. Now I'm going to sit at the computer. Ow, my neck and my shoulder and my wrist hurt. And so I developed all these, and they were kind of like these cascading conditions that anytime I really dove into something, like I played the guitar for a number of years, and then I got really into it and was practicing a lot, wrist problems, And each time I was trapped in the system where it's like, oh, my wrist hurts, let me go to the wrist doctor. And went so far as to get surgery on my wrist, which didn't do anything. But then a lot of other stuff like, foot pain. Okay, let me go to the foot doctor, the podiatrist. Oh, you have plantar fasciitis. And what each condition led to was, oh yeah, that part of your body is weak and injured. Now you should not use it. So, the podiatrist.
Head in a jar.
Yeah. Podiatrist says, stop running. Don't run. The wrist doctor says, well, I guess you can't play the guitar.
Good thing you didn't see a lung doctor.
Yeah, exactly. Or it didn't work into my organs yet. But basically pain in every single part of your, this is over the course of age 19 to 20, almost 28, almost 29. So I'd say a 10-year period of cascading chronic pain. So I didn't have any consistent habit of going to a gym because I would just get injured. I couldn't run or do anything cardio. So I was in decent shape because I just ate well and was kind of active, but I couldn't get really strong or really fit in the way that I wanted to. And it really bothered me. And I had a very strong belief that was like, I can't do that. That my body doesn't work that way. That's just not possible for me.
Whew. Now there's a lot of there's a lot of heavy stuff you dropped in there. And I want to go back to 15 when you get the diagnosis, when you begin the search for a doctor. So you basically go from 15 years old to 50 years old because you're an athlete and you're moving all the time and you're confident in your body, and when you fall down and you're an athlete, you bounce. And when you fall down and you're 50, you break. And you'd made that mental switch and at that early age, and then you got this fancy diagnosis attached to it at 19. But you, with this medication, you did make a transition. Tell me about, so you get medicated and you start the transition back into sports, and like you kind of you talked a little bit about it, but you did push yourself. You did put yourself back into the world a little bit.
Yeah, I did, and I enjoyed it, and I was able to do things. There was sort of a mysterious quality to it. Why can I push myself here and it goes okay, and then I push myself there and all of a sudden there's a pain condition? Why is it I can do it this day but not that day? Oh, I was with friends and they want to go on a mountain bike ride. Oh, I could do that fine. 5 days later, I'm sitting on a couch that's too soft, because for me it was like sitting on soft stuff seemed to like mess with me, like soft couches, soft beds. All of a sudden I'm sitting on a couch and I'm getting this shooting pain. Even with the end, there's still periods of pain and stuff. And that, I think, is what, when we get into the turnaround of this story, the liberation aspect of it, that all makes sense to me now because I understand the nature of the pain and where it's coming from. I didn't back then, but I did. And it really was a major, I was pretty depressed for periods of time when there was an unknown. Maybe I'm going to have this pain for the rest of my life. But when the knob got turned down, my mood got turned up, and I became a lot more ready to throw myself in to try things at least. Right.
And we're going to come into the turnaround point, but I'm going to drop some ideas about pain, because that's really what we have is ideas. Pain's a not completely understood phenomena. Nerves transmit information, and we don't really understand all the things that they're signaling when they are. But here's some ideas that I got from the Czech Institute. I studied a little bit about spinal pathology back when I was more of a post-rehabilitative coach. And pain is, you mentioned this, having a disconnect between athletic stuff and then sitting would hurt you. Pain is distinct from injury. They are sometimes aligned, but they are separate. Those are separate events, and that messes with people. They think that I hurt, therefore I'm injured, and it's not always that clear, because pain actually takes place inside the brain. And if you actually have a physical injury, the damage is done on the body somewhere peripherally, but we feel it. The feeling is inside our brain. So those are separate events that are often co-located and synchronized, but can be separate.
That's a great point.
This is probably going to be the end of my my detailed information here on it. Pain. This is how it was explained to me by a physical therapist that I really respect. As pain is an action signal. It's a signal to change something. And I almost underlined that for you because talking about signal to take action and signal to change, and how pain is a threat or perceived threat to the body's homeostasis. So it actually doesn't need to cause any damage. The brain just has to believe that it will damage the body's ability to take care of itself, to stay in homeostasis.
Yeah, I love those points. I mean, the most natural thing in the world when there's pain is to conclude I've done something to injure my body, and now I'm going to restrict what I do to be safe. I'm going to crawl under the cave and like kind of rest until my body is healthy again, which makes sense if you're like, an animal breaks its bone, it's going to do that. That's an actual injury. But like you're saying, there's so many different sources of that pain, and yet yeah, no, that's a great point.
Well, it's everything after that. I mean, even that, these are kind of pain philosophies. And one thing I read recently from Coach John Berardi, he's a nutritionist, and he talks about how one of the things that it's instinctual, like you said, to immobilize when you've been injured, but the mechanoreceptors for your nerves, movement is feeding your nerves good information about the tissue that's being utilized. And when you turn those positive, if you will, messages on around the damaged tissue, the body then gets the signal, hey, don't abandon this. We don't need to cut this limb off. This is working still. It's just got a little bit of an issue.
Yeah. Well, and that's one thing that you have really helped me do a number of times. So in my journey getting into using my body fully and getting strong in these last 7 months, I'd say, 7 months, there have been times where my body wants to create pain. I have theories as to why, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But multiple times I would have injuries that I would have had in the past. So all of a sudden my wrist is hurting. Oh, I used to have that injury in quotes here all the time. Then, I remember one time I was doing pull-ups and my neck all of a sudden had this popping sensation. And then I got shooting pain down my spine. And in instances like that in the past, the moment that happened, I'd be out of the gym and I wouldn't come back for 2 weeks or whatever. God. And I know, working with you and kind of working through it, it's like, oh, you adapt your workout, you take the signal, and you keep going, you keep learning with it. And it's not some, gut it out, push through the pain, don't even, kind of macho philosophy. It's just confidence. It's not like retreating in fear, like see an enemy that's poked. It's just saying, okay, I'm going to stay in this and figure my way out through it. And that each time I did that, after a couple of times of that, it radically shifted my psychology about, how my body works and how strong it is.
Well, you gave yourself a new successful strategy. Like your brain knew, like, okay, so if this is injured, what we're going to do is we're going to do a little wiggling around it. And that's good, because the flee thing, that's the old model. That was the old attitude. And that brings us nicely into your kind of turnaround story. And I've got a couple of questions, but I kind of want to see from your version of it, kind of how it starts, because you've kind of been cooking up some momentum for a few years now.
Yeah, I love it. So I am just extremely grateful for people that led me to the right resources. A good friend of mine who's also a massage therapist one time said, hey, you check out this book. It's called The Divided Mind. It's by this guy named Sarno. So I got it, and he's like, I think it might help you with your pain. So I got it, I looked through it, and I was kind of like, oh, yeah, I don't know. And then, it sat on my shelf for probably 2 years or more.
My pain's real. I don't need that book.
I know. It's funny how, like, there's this, like, the kingdom, to the keys of heaven or whatever, just is right there. And then it's like, whatever. And I probably have books on my shelf right now that are actually like that for my next, goals and challenges. But anyway, somewhere there was a shift, and I don't remember the exact moment, but I was like, what was that thing? And then I got an audio version of his other book. His name is John Sarno, MD, and it's called The Mind Body Prescription. And I remember listening to this. I listened to the whole book in probably a day and a half. I remember I went on this like 2-hour walk in a park, just like listening to it. And it was like, I was receptive then. And I was just like, what? Because the symptoms he was describing was like neck pain. And I had so much pain at that time. I was going to the chiropractor all the time, sitting at a computer, even for like 20 minutes. I'd get such tightness and balls of tight muscles and trigger points in my neck and shoulders and traps, and my wrists would hurt, my elbow, all kinds of stuff that might be diagnosed as even carpal tunnel or repetitive strain injuries. My feet were hurting. I couldn't run. Just so many ailments, right? And so maybe there was like that breaking point where I was like, I'm willing to try whatever it takes. And the fact that it was a psychological approach to pain was right up my alley, because as you know, I'm the mind guy. So, okay, so I was like, okay. And I started listening to it, and the philosophy was fascinating and it made sense. And I was willing to try it. And so I applied what was in that book, and I can go over the philosophy in just a minute, but I applied what was in that book. And over the course of a year of consistently applying it, probably less, probably even within 4 to 5 months, I was running and doing all kinds of activities I hadn't done before. And over a period of, I don't know, about 7-8 months, all pain around sitting at a computer, around running, around using my body was gone. Like literally gone. Not only gone, but it wouldn't come back from doing certain activities that used to cause it pain. And the beauty of this philosophy is the more that you understand it, the more certainty you get that the pain is, I'm not going to say it's not real, because it's freaking real. It hurts. But the pain is not, the source of the pain is not what you think. The source of the pain is not sleeping on a bed that's too soft or on your stomach, or turning your neck the wrong way on your pillow, or sitting at your computer with poor posture. I mean, sitting at your computer with poor posture is going to affect your body, probably not in optimal ways. You should get up and move around, which I try to do. But it's not going to create like crushing, crippling pain and carpal tunnel and all these like serious sounding conditions that we go get surgeries for. That actually the source of the pain is something else entirely. And the more you see that and you get certainty around that, the more pain is eliminated and then doesn't come back. And that's been amazing for me. And so I had that turnaround in 6 to 8 months, made major shifts, then had a birth of my first son and then my second son, and kind of got lost in it all. And then after that was like, okay, I want to take it to the next level. Like, I'm now pain-free and pretty active, but what if I got real, like, what if I wanted to go work out and get really strong in my body? Can I become an athlete? Can I really, push that edge? And that's what led me to you.
Boom, getting after it. And when you talk about these things, I just feel for you, because you're so smart and you're so detail oriented. And then you get in front of these fitness professionals, and I've seen it done where they're like, oh, well, the trigger point at your trap will then tighten up and cover the nerve here. And then, so if your neck is sore, you probably won't be able to write. And everything gets these dramatic consequences, and they have all these logical sounding explanations, which is nice. It's comforting, but it's not actually going to help for you. And I've seen it, and I've done some of that, and I remember looking at the body like a puzzle. We're going to troubleshoot all these things, and it's really it gives people latch on to that sense of certainty around, okay, now we have a name for it and we've got this thing, and then ultimately that doesn't get rid of the pain of the situation.
Yeah, a story can alleviate some of that anxiety of uncertainty. Like, where is this coming from? But now we have some relief, like, oh, I know where it's coming from. The only problem is the story we have about where it's coming from is wrong. So it doesn't, it's like an inaccurate map. It doesn't allow you to get to where you want to go. Which is strong and, healthy. That's what everyone wants.
Right. That is what everyone wants. And the difficulty is transitioning from that identity where you were like, well, my body doesn't do these things. And I want to dig into that a little bit, because that's the switch is if you're that person who had this idea where it's like my body, if I push it, my body pushes back and it hurts me. And then you're able to just slide a little wedge of belief under that and flip it. Was that the book? Is that the moment?
Yeah, it was. It was a strategy about how to approach the pain that was different. And then I applied the strategy. And let me just tell what it is, because then it makes it all make sense, right? Someone's like, what is this magic voodoo? So basically, the theory that so John Sarno was a more traditional like sports rehab, injury rehab doctor. So people would come with back pain, another pain, shoulder pain, whatever. And basically, and this was back in the 70s or early 80s, 70s probably, early in his training. And it was like, they would just be like, okay, here's physical therapy, here's rest and, whatever, anti-inflammatories or steroidal medication if needed, or surgery. And he's like, I was just recommending the same things, and none of them worked that well. And he got frustrated. Then he started to notice, I don't know how he put these two things together, that the patients that he was seeing, even if they're coming in for like back pain, they would have tender spots that were kind of universally the same. Like, so even though they had back pain, even though they didn't say they had trap pain, there would be like tenderness in their traps. And he had like 11 points that he found, probably from physical examination. And then he started to notice that they had very similar personality characteristics. They tended to be hard driving, perfectionistic achievers, but also what he calls goodists, people who wanted to be good, moral, nice people, as I would call it. They want to do the right thing, and they probably overextend themselves to help others, pleasers and helpers. And so he started to question if it was entirely physical and structural. And then he ended up meeting with this analyst guy who helped him understand a theory, which was that the theory was that the pain is actually unconsciously, like we're not doing it consciously, somewhere before our frontal lobe is fully aware of what's happening, our body creates pain. And it does so as a distraction to draw our attention away from something that would be even more painful. And in this case, that's emotions. Emotions that are threatening to our sense of self, like intense anger or rage, grief or sadness, things that really disturb us and shake us to our core. We don't, on some level, not our conscious mind. Our conscious mind might say, yeah, I can feel that stuff. What's the big deal? I'd rather feel that than this freaking shoulder pain. But it's not happening consciously. It's an unconscious process. And all we know is shoulder pain. Mm-hmm. So the turning point. So then what the idea is, whenever you feel that pain, the typical response is to be like, ow, my shoulders hurt. And then we go, what caused it? Did I sleep on it wrong? And if you heaven forbid you have a chronic history with that spot, then you go into your story, right? Like, oh, this thing is back again. It's always back. It's not fair. And why? Oh, that person told me I should do this, and that's not going to work.
You're addicted to your own shoulder.
Yeah, right. And we're just all over the map. And if you really start to realize the distraction, you say, wow, what a beautifully architected distraction, because how absorbing is it? If anyone's ever had that pain down the side of your neck where you can't turn your head in the morning, how often do you think about that during the day? You probably think about that like 400 times, and you keep testing it. Like, ow, yeah, it still hurts. Ah, damn, ah, and it's so absorbing. And so the shift happened when I really took the philosophy and said, okay, when I notice the pain, he has you kind of run through this series of like statements to remind yourself, such as, this pain is not structural. There's nothing wrong with my neck or my shoulder or my back or whatever. And of course, he premises this in his book, like you should get officially diagnosed by a physician who's aware of this kind of pain, which he dubbed TMS, tension myositis syndrome, which just means inflammation of the muscles. However, since then, many people have expanded his work to call it PPD, which stands for psychophysiological disorders, which just means mind-body disorders that are generated in the mind, not due to injury or something like that. So he says, go get diagnosed by a physician that's very aware of this, and then they can rule anything else out. But guess what? There's like 50 people in the country that actually are really on board with this, because it's so counter to the mainstream machine of medicine, of surgery. I mean, there's like billions.
How would you treat it? You know, you can't medicate it. You can't cut it open. So how are you going to bill for it?
It's cheap, you know, it's too damn cheap, we know. And then there's fascinating studies, and he cites tons of them in his book. There's another book called The Great Pain Deception by a guy who's done tons of research on it, and just study after study of ineffective surgeries, ineffective back surgeries, arthroscopic knee surgeries, they've done this with a lot of different surgeries now, where they do placebo sham surgery and the results are identical to the actual surgery. So, you know, it's against the, you know, where the money is and where the momentum is going. So, you know, forget that. I was like, I'm not going to find a physician I'm just going to do this thing and see if it works. So I ran through those points. I said, the pain is not structural. It's emotional. There's nothing wrong with my neck. The principal emotions are going to be, he says it's often always anger, but I found for me that it's anger and also grief or sadness. But it's like, okay, it's emotions. And then you start this like, and this is why I think 90% of people that are introduced to this philosophy reject it and don't really want to go there. That's what I found. I tell a lot of people about this, and a lot of people are maybe polite, like, oh yeah, neat for you.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm going to keep going to the chiropractor. I'll see you later. Right. And because it's saying the way out is through. That means you got to take your awareness out of your absorbed distraction with your pain and sit down and focus, and do so with discipline, like 20 minutes a day or, you know, for however long it takes. I did it, you know, 20 minutes a day where you sit down with a journal and you just say like, what is bothering me? What am I angry about in my life that I have not admitted to myself? What am I deeply sad about that I told myself I shouldn't be sad about anymore? And, you know, and he's saying, Sarno's saying, you don't have to sit and feel all those feelings. You don't have to like punch a pillow and feel enraged. You just have to start to say, you have to start to see that there are things that are upsetting you.
Right.
Now, for me personally, I've found that I've needed to feel a lot. To really heal this stuff up. And maybe I'm just more messed up than most people. I don't know. But my experience is you feel it. And that's the turning point. That's why most people, when I offer it, will say, oh yeah, because they're scared. We're scared of our emotions. Sitting and feeling our feelings, I think, is the most terrifying thing for most people. That's why we have so much distraction, so much addiction, so much all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah, come on, the good stuff. You know,
right.
You gotta feel good all the time, right?
And one specific around this is he's very, he points out this is an unconscious process, which means you have to see it from you know, basically there's parts of our mind, you know, and one common part that Freud identified is called the id. Some people call it the child primitive, but it's our instinctual part. You know, it's the part that wants to, you know, attack, grab, have sex, eat the delicious dessert, you know, the pleasure principle part.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the part that is often enraged and angry inside of us. And that's the part that we block from our conscious awareness because it's immature. It doesn't make sense. It's not rational, but
Right.
You need to sit down and be like, you know, and that part gets upset about needing to take care of anyone, any sort of responsibility, any sort of pressure that it feels in its life to perform, whether it's external, like your boss or your family need it from you, or it's internal. You feel like you got to be number one or get that goal. All of those things stack up. And that inner id, that inner child primitive is pissed. And if we don't pay attention to it, we don't listen to it, we don't give it some attention, then neck pain, shoulder pain, wrist pain, foot pain, back pain, you name it.
Straight back at you. And I remember when you first gave me the book, I think it's Back Pain or Fixing Back Pain, or and I read it and I was just like, it was so intuitive to me because I have been studying the body for a long time, and I just know that the body's not that fragile. And I loved his points in there about how like the amount of pain that we say we feel and the amount of pain that is actually due for a serious injury are so far off. And when you acknowledge it, and I think there was a couple of pieces there that I took away and from our original conversations a few years ago to even today is this, what you're saying is just acknowledge what is happening and like do that both for your body, but also for your mind. Like, saying like, okay, like for me, I have, you know, an achy knee that I think we've talked about, means nothing, just happens sometimes. And just say like, hey, my knee hurts today. And then like, what are we going to do about that? Well, we're going to try and move through this. And if it likes it, we're going to keep moving through it. And if it gives me more feedback and starts to really feel terrible, then today, but tomorrow we're going to do it again. You know, rest today, do it again tomorrow, and say like, we're not done with this. We're not done bending the knee. We're just going to make sure that everything's okay. And then we're going to take another whack at it. And having that philosophy, consistently going in and making a habit of doing like an inventory for yourself. Like, you know, you were talking about making a list of all the things that you are, you know, avoiding or repressing or whatever. I think that's a very self-aware thing to do. That, I mean, obviously we could all use a little bit more self-awareness. But I also think like for me, I just need to, I have a notebook. I just write down like you said, responsibilities. I was like, okay, what are the things that are needing to be taken care of for me, for anybody in my life? What are all the things that are just in my head or that are back there rattling around that are bothering me? And then I just put on a list. And it's like, I don't even need to attack the list. I just need to know what these things are. It's like, oh yeah, I gotta call my mom. I don't, you know, oh, I gotta do this. Oh, I gotta take the laundry out. Oh, I gotta do this. And then just so I know, and just so it's not taking up space and the gravity gets reduced a little bit.
Yeah. I think that's powerful. And, you know, each of those things, we're not even consciously aware of it, but there is a part of us that can be resistant to that. So I gotta, you know, call my mom or take care of so-and-so. We want to do that, right? And then there's a part of us that's like, screw you, I don't want to do that. We can like slow down. And same thing, you know, anyone who's got kids, love the hell out of my kids. And there's a part of me is like, screw you, I don't want to clean up the almond meal that you spilled all over the ground, right? So there's a part that doesn't want to do that. And of course, in the moment, I don't say that. I suppress it. And then I just do what I need to do and try to be kind and loving, right? So, but then we want to be able to just acknowledge that part's there. And again, we don't need to go into a rage and an extreme, but just like, yeah, there's a part of me that is upset or angry about that. And sometimes we need to feel it, sometimes we don't. But I find if we do that and make a practice of that with those lists that you're talking about, combined with when the pain comes up, doing what you're saying, like, yeah, it's there. Okay, now we're going to go about our life, not obsessing on the structural injury. If you combine that with the awareness work, that's what I found to heal and like permanently remove chronic pain. So for example, now with the foot pain that was diagnosed plantar fasciitis, that literally persisted for years. Like years, and every time I'd run on it, it would like be shooting pain. It's like, oh, I can't do this. Then when I really got all this stuff, pain totally disappeared. And then like, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, I woke up one morning and had like some pain in the bottom of my foot. And I was just like, oh yeah, okay, some emotions to feel. There's nothing. And so once you've like kind of conquered an area, like you know that there's nothing there, because that's actually the biggest shift. Is someone taught me this. They call it the certainty gap. When you become certain that it's TMS or PPD or whatever you want to call it, it's not structural, the pain goes away really fast. The reason it lingers for people is because they're like, part of them is like, okay, I read in this book that it's not real, but then all the other stories in their mind like, oh, that's not real, then how come this and how come that and what about that? And remember that injury, remember that doctor, remember that diagnosis, remember that x-ray, you know, and it smashes in there. And the victory comes when we like finally get to total certainty. So for me, I have total certainty in my foot. Now I'm still working on the remainder of, so the pain that's in my like low back and left buttock that was originally diagnosed as ankylosing spondylitis. I'm still going in and like chipping away at that one because that one has such a entrenched story that it's hard to remain totally certain. And it's hard to remain certain when you're in the face of pain, right? Like it's like shooting pain and you're like, no, this is not structural.
This is real.
You know?
This one's real.
Yeah. You know, you do that for like a day and then the pain persists and then it's hard. So I get struggle, it's a battle, but when you get total certainty, that's when freedom comes. And it's an amazing feeling, because not only is your pain gone, but the fear of pain returning, like a storm or a shadow that comes out of nowhere that you're just victim to, like to have a sense of certainty, like, oh, I'm not going to get injured. I mean, I could get injured. I could, like, something could fall on me, but I'd recover pretty quickly. But like the fact that I won't get chronic pain out of nowhere, to me is the most, it's the thing that it's one of the top 3 things that I'm most grateful for in my life.
That's amazing. And I think that there's so many golden things you just talked about in that last bit. You have to move into it. Like you were talking about moving into the injury, like saying like, okay, this is what's going on. I know it's going to be okay. And it reminds me of a principle in the military. And it is, if you're ambushed, and you've been flanked, the only thing you can do to win the ambush is you have to face it. And so, because they're not prepared for you to stand and engage, they think they've got you flanked and that you're going to keep getting broadsided. But if you spin into it and you attack your attackers head on, that's your best chance at being successful and winning the day. And it's like, that's what you got to do. If you've been outflanked, you can only do one thing to get this ship turned back in the right direction. And that's just face your fears.
I love it.
And I don't think people understand, as I see you, I think I saw you pull 225 off the floor, a couple of days ago, maybe was that this morning, but somebody who is afraid of their back breaking from sitting and then pulling more than your body weight up off the ground and pretty handily. Like, it wasn't like you were like gritting your teeth and grinding, but you actually just yanked it right up and it was fine. And with the level of like, I could do that or I could do more, it's fine. And that's it's a different day. It's a different Aziz now. It's a different person.
I love it. I mean, and the deadlift of all things was that was the one I felt like I was like a kind of a tentative child or something, like going about to go do something. And I look to the parent and they're like, yeah, it's fine. Go do it. And I take a step closer. I'm like, really? Yeah, no, just go ahead and do it, because it's, I'll talk about all those, you were mentioning earlier, the stories you might hear from health professionals that say like, oh, your neck pain is because you did this and that's connected to this, and all the theories, every single one of if your back's hurting, every single one of those doesn't say like lift heavy weight off the ground. And then there's all these admonitions about how you should lift, right? And it's like, and when you do a deadlift, I feel it in my legs, but I feel it in my back. And it's like, hold on a second, my low back is this weak, fragile part of my body. And if I use it, it's going to snap and shatter like glass, right? So, but, progressively facing the fear going into it. I remember I was like scared the first few times I deadlifted. I remember that. And now it's just uncomfortable because it's heavy.
which is still, it's the level of, I think that you're such a great messenger because you have been where so many people are. Because like, I don't like I've done deadlifts incorrectly and I don't like doing them incorrectly. And this is, by the way, and then this is a caveat, not a caveat, but there's a dichotomy to everything you were saying. Like with the kids, we realize that there's a cost and there's a benefit and a burden for everything that we do. We love our children, they tax us. We love our family members, they tax us. We love our body. You have to put work into your body, and there's also sometimes you just know today's not the day. And we were talking about this. It's like the deadlift is one where I've done it wrong. I've had a day where it's like I can't get everything to fire correctly, and I don't want to feel that pain because like I know that my back will hurt if I do it poorly. So I'm getting down the deadlift and it's not a good day. I'm like, I'll try again tomorrow, and just to be safe, because we want to be smart about it too. We don't want to force something down the pipe that the body's not ready for. But it's also not being afraid to ask and let the body decide what's going to happen that day, and like let your limitations come to you.
Yeah, and that's true because and that's another thing I've really learned from you is like really listening to my body and being like, okay, I am a little weaker this morning for whatever reason, just daily fluctuations. So don't put the exact weight as last time, because I did that and I'm weaker. I can't do 8 of that. I can only do 6 of that. So really paying attention to that information, I think is helpful. And, I'm just thinking about, if anyone is listening to this or watching this, because I've seen some people in the gym in your gym that are with this, they have like a chronic place that's always hurt. Their shoulder is always hurt, for example. And, they might say, yeah, I know I'm stressed out, right? I get it. You guys are talking about emotional source. It's stress in your life. I know that I'm stressed. I know my stress affects my shoulder. And what I'm talking about here is a little different. It's not like, I'm tensing my body because I'm stressed, so then my shoulder hurts or my back hurts. Like, that's probably happening too. But no, it's like literally the whole pain, the whole thing is designed to get your focus away from your emotions. And, some people are ready to face their feelings and really be free of it and really test this theory out. And a lot of people, and I've shared this with tons of people, I share with all the people in my own mastermind program, and eventually more and more people as I have a platform that I'll be doing that with. But, people are ready and some people aren't. But if someone's watching and you're struggling with something, it is so worth exploring and examining and throwing yourself into, because the other side, the potential, is just incredible. And how much do we invest in terms of time and money into all the other treatments? Not to mention emotional cost of pain, fear, frustration, despair. So to me, it's like, if there's any part of us that's drawn to it, I can't recommend it enough.
Oh man. Well, it's, you're such a great example of that. And just the fact that you're doing it, and the fact that it's alive with you makes your words and your example and your recommendation so much more alive. And for people who, like, tell me I'm going to go to a couple different points of this. Like, so your biggest fear, what was your biggest like obstacle to starting this program, or not biggest obstacle, but actually let's go the other route. So you're on this TMS track and you're doing this treatment, you're feeling better. And then what kicked you into overdrive for wanting to take your body to the next level? What was this? Was there like you looked in the mirror and you're like, oh, I don't know if I like this, or what was the flash in the pan, or did you even have one?
Yeah, it was kind of a couple of things that came together. That moment of looking in the mirror, actually, it was like probably 6 months before any sort of action. It was actually Christmas, a month after my second son was born. And there's some pictures we're at my wife's mom's house for Christmas. And there's like some pictures of me in this like sweatshirt that I had. The sweatshirt was just a little bit too small overall. But I'm just like, that sweatshirt makes me look fat. And then it was like, I don't sweatshirt, it's like, so, but that still didn't change anything. At that point, I don't know if it was like, that stuff wasn't forefront and center, like, oh, I'm injurable, because I'd done so much work on it. It was further back, and it was just kind of like habit, laziness, like, but what I realized is when I really started working on it, it was still fear, because I knew I'd gotten to like, okay, my body's okay, but not my body's, and I'm an athlete. My body is really strong. And I think what the turning point was, I had so much success with all of these other pain conditions, and yet I was still taking this medication. And if I didn't take the medication, I would still get that same damn pain from, 15 years ago. And I was just like, what is happening? Is this like, what is an autoimmune condition? Why is my body? I just started really kind of pondering that. And that led me back into the TMS world with a specific focus on that one pain, because everything else had been resolved. And then something about that led to like, I can be free of this. I can, get back. In a way, it was almost like finally recovering that I could be the way I was when I was, 14 before that. Like, that me was still in there, and that was possible to do. And then that opened up something. I was in the late summer, and then thank God for YouTube. I was signing on to just do whatever dinking around that I was going to do. And a recommended video, which had never been recommended before, never been recommended since. I don't watch this kind of stuff. And yet it recommended top 10 celebrity transformations of men celebrities who transform their bodies. And I was watching it, and they show guys from like, and they would say the year, you know, they have their shirts off in different movies, right? And what stuck out to me was that you'd be like, here's this guy in 2001, like Jake Gyllenhaal or something. And he's kind of scrawny. I'm like, oh, I look like that. And then it's him in 2004, 3 or 4 years later, and he's bigger. And then it's him in 2008, and he's ripped, right? And you're like, whoa, that's 7 years. Like, whoa, that's possible. Like, if you told me, could you get ripped? I would have been no. But if like, hey, could you do it in 7 years? I would have been like, yeah, I think so. So that, you know, that combined with the backdrop of really going back into this literature and trying to free myself fully, kick something into gear. And that's when I knocked on your door and said, I want to look like Brad Pitt from Fight Club. And that's, and here we are.
I gave you an estimate though. I was like, well, I need 10 years though. I need 10 years.
Pay up front now for a massive discount.
That's it. So you were talking about theories you might have had back. So you had some like more unsubstantiated theories about maybe your medication so did you end up getting off the medication? Are you done with that?
That's a really interesting story. So right now my belief is that there is nothing wrong with my body structurally, and that my relationship with Enbrel is that it's a placebo. It's the belief effect. And one of the reasons I believe that is because for ankylosing spondylitis, there's these markers, there's a gene that a lot of people have, other things, and I don't have a lot of those markers. Also, inflammation in my body is a very vague thing. What causes inflammation? So I started to question that. And then I realized that there's been lots of studies that have shown that when a medication is delivered in a certain way, it has an effect, even if it's a placebo, even if it's inert. So if they give people a cream for a rash or whatever, and they say, here's this cream, it's generic, it costs 2 cents per milliliter or whatever. It has one effect, and both creams are the same. And then they give someone this cream that say, like, this is a very expensive cream, it's a new cream, it costs $4 per milliliter, and the person uses it and their rash heals better. And the way the Enbrel was distributed to me was like, okay, so, because when I had the pain, nothing would touch it. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, nothing. Prednisone and other steroids they tried a couple times, nothing. Opiates like Vicodin and other things, nothing. Like, it was crazy. Like, I'd take a Vicodin, like, oh, I feel kind of good. But, like, the pain wouldn't go away. Marijuana, tried that one a lot. Didn't help. Actually made the pain worse. But so I finally met with this rheumatologist at age 19. He went through all this profile, gave me a diagnosis, and I think this is what it is. Here's what we're going to do, though. I think this medication, Enbrel, that's the one. He's wearing a white lab coat, of course, too, right? That's the one that's going to help you. So he's already setting up a priming that it's going to work. Then he says, but the insurance company won't give it to you because it's very new and very, very expensive. Like, if you were to buy it out of pocket, a dose of 4 of these things, which you're supposed to take 2 a week, is like over $1,000. So it's very expensive. So in order for them to cover it, you have to demonstrate that you've tried all the other options. So we're going to put you on this medication for 1 month, this other medication for 1 month. If both of those don't work, which I don't think they will because you've tried all the other stuff, that one will be the one that will help you. So sure enough, I did 1, didn't work, did 2, didn't work, did the Enbrel, and it helped. So that combined with just all my knowledge around this stuff, I was like, I don't think this is real. So what I did is most recently in the last 5 to 6 months, I got together with a naturopathic doctor that I really like. And I was like, let's actually test, is there inflammation in my body? Like what's actually happened? So we did a big blood panel, and yes, there was inflammation, but he had other theories as to why. And one of them is that I was running on 10 times the cortisol of what he would think is in the healthy range. And I was like, yeah, I am pretty wound up all the time. I'm a nervous creature. So I made a top priority at the beginning of this year, 2017, to run on higher quality fuel. which I'd say I've been doing a lot better with, like the best probably ever since I started my own business, to be in more of a state of peace and inspiration as I go about my day. And then I'm experimenting now with taking the Enbrel, because I tried all the time to go like cold turkey and the pain just slams back. So now I'm taking it at the same regimen, but I'm titrating out the dose slightly. So instead of a full milliliter, the last 2-3 weeks I've done 0.9. And I'll do that I'm on the long road. I'm in no hurry. I've tried to get off it fast and hard, and it's been bad news. So I'm just like, okay, I'll do this for a month, and I'll do 0.8 for a month, and maybe it takes me a year to get off of it while I'm doing my inner work around this stuff and really solidifying the certainty that that there's nothing structurally wrong with me. I don't need this medication. So now, in fact, before I take the Enbrel every time, I do two things. I say, like, because I focus a lot on gratitude. So I'm like, thank you for this medication as it's helped me, live such a higher quality of life. And thank you. I know I don't need this anymore. And it's just a matter of time. I know that this is a placebo. I know that this is not what I need. I know my body is strong and healthy. Then I take the medication. So I'm starting to retrain my brain and my nervous system to see it in a way that I think is more accurate.
Well, I'm glad that you're taking the titrated dosages, and I know you've tried to kick the habit dramatically a couple times, and also I think that like you've been because we worked out together in the past. You have it's like a vert pipe, it's like you have been ramping and getting higher on the wall, and then you got your escape velocity to where you could actually use your body. And it wasn't like you read a book, then the next morning you decided that you were going to be pain free, and then lived a completely liberated existence. There was stepping stones and trial and error and things like that.
There's all kinds of wacky shit on that. I love that metaphor. Going up that pipe, because before I came across sauna stuff, I'm an extremely motivated, driven guy. My life is, my own social confidence and anxiety was transformed from reading books and studying and applying it. That's what I did for a living, was helping people. Like, you can learn the solution to your problem. You just have to find it, right? So that's what I believe in, but I just couldn't find it. So I was trying everything. I did juice fasts because I heard that they could help. I remember reading from a doctor named Mark Furman that they did water fasts with people and they cured all kinds of conditions. And in his book, he specifically mentioned ankylosing spondylitis. So I tried a water fast. I made it, I think, 5 or 6 days. It was brutal. I would not recommend that one. I did the Egoscue method, which is really good for strengthening my body. But I think it still stays in the philosophy that it's structural. So it kind of can keep you stuck. So I did that, but I was like, I would do these things full out. They're like, okay, here's your Egoscue routine. It's an hour a day. And I would be like, I got it every single day. And they're like, you did it every day between last time we saw you? And I'm like, yes, I did. Because I was like, I'm going to do whatever it takes. And, but I was never found lasting relief with any of those things until his stuff. Now I'm still on the medication, but I feel like I have already kind of hit that terminal velocity, that escape velocity, and it's just a matter of time. And, at the end of the day, if for some reason I still need to keep taking the medication or whatever, like, I'm totally fine because I'm just so grateful I can use my body and get stronger and stronger. And I feel like that's the best place to be coming from it too, because in the past, to be like, I got to get off this stuff. And that resistance, the best way to let something go is to accept it and be at peace with it. And then it falls away when it's no longer necessary.
Yeah. What an easy thing to say and a tough thing to do. And I think about like people who are, have a heart transplant or organ transplant, and they have to take like the medication that keeps them from rejecting the organ for the rest of their life, or an enzyme that their pancreas stopped producing, or whatever it is. It's like small price to pay. Such a small price to pay for getting the opportunity to play. And
for life. Yeah. Absolutely.
And there's so much tied into this, like, like coming from a place where you your body wasn't doing anything that you wanted it to do, and all the judgments that can accrue. I mean, I crack myself up with the attachments that I have to things that are, now I won't say irrelevant, because like I'm any other competitive guy. I want to be able to bench press, 1,000 pounds and squat 1,000 pounds. And it's like when my numbers decrease a little bit, I'm like, this is shit. Like this is the worst. It's like but then when at the end of the day, it's like, who cares if I squat, 400 pounds or 200 pounds? I'm the same person. And I get so attached to every specific outcome. And it's like, it must be this way.
Man, I love that. And that's been a journey for me too. About 3 months into working out with you, I remember I was doing some sprints, the Training for Warriors Hurricane, as you call it. And I was sprinting and I was like not having fun. And I was like, this sucks, because I was wanting a result. I was wanting to be ripped in 3 months or whatever my, fantasy was. And in that moment, I made a decision, like, I'm going to be doing this for a long time, 10 years, right? I see it as a lifelong thing. And if I'm playing it that way, it's going to be a long road. And in that moment, I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I knew in that moment I was decided I'm going to focus on the process and mastery. And I keep coming back to that. And I think what helps me be able to do that is, if you've been starved of something for 15 years, you haven't had clean water for 15 years, and then you go somewhere where water is flowing from the tap, you're going to be pretty freaking grateful for that for a long time, way more than most people who just had that. And I think for me, having the inability to use my body in the way that I wanted for 15 years, like for me, I do this, I'm on this, I go to extremes. So I realized I wanted to feel more grateful more of the time in my life. So I've started what I called my 100 days of gratitude and blessings, where I each day write down over the course of the day on my phone 100 things that I noticed that I'm grateful for. So the idea is that I do it multiple times throughout the day to accumulate that many numbers. And I'd say like thankfulness for the strength of my body must come up at least, and more than anything else, even like the love of my family and other things, because I feel like when there's so much pain and a trapped sense of despair around the pain, it's hard to really like fully appreciate that love. Like to me, it all starts with here, and then we can, experience more of life. So that must come up at least 15 times throughout the course of the 100, just how grateful I am. Different aspects, like thank God I can use my shoulders. I'm so glad my legs are strong and I can sprint. Thank God there's no pain in my back. So I just feel like I'm eternally grateful for that. And I really appreciate you as part of my journey here. That's like the next level, because I feel like I'm really stepping into like, okay, it's called Training for Warriors. Oh, that's cool. The Coliseum. Yeah. And now it's kind of like, oh yeah, I'm a fucking warrior. Like it's getting in there, and it's powerful, and it's way more than like I'm pain free. That's cool. But next level, full potential, what I'm capable of as a human and as a man, like that excites me. So thank you for that.
Hey man. Yeah, it's so funny. I love how you're like, I think I might be a warrior, when you're one of the most intense people I've ever met. And I haven't met anybody I think that I can think of off the top of my head who works harder to liberate and help more people and grinds day in and day out. And then at 12:20 p.m. Pacific, Aziz like, I think I might be a warrior. I don't even know. I'm glad, man.
Right? Like warrior for me is like, throwing around that 1,000 pounds or something. Only then. That's right.
Other 999, not a warrior.
Wimp or warrior. Those are your two.
That's all there is. Oh man. Well, it's huge. You've already shared so many great things with me and with other people about your journey, and I think that it would be cool to make like a 5-page guide to pain or something someday. I know that ebooks are in the past, but it'd be fun to have something that we could give to people to empower them, because I think it's like when you're ready, they got to give you the book, and then it's got to sit on the shelf, And then when you've tried everything else, when you've done your 62 Egoscue interventions every other day for 2 years, then it might be time to dust off the warrior method.
Yeah, I love it, man. This is good stuff. I'm excited to share this and keep spreading the word. Disciple, student of Sarno. I'd highly recommend that. His name is John Sarno, Sarno. You can find his stuff on Amazon. They're all on Audible too, which is great, because I have to listen to books these days.
Heck yeah.
There's something called the TMS Wiki. Letters TMS, and then Wiki is in Wikipedia, WIKI. That's like a community that was created by a guy named, I think his name was Forrest something. I don't know his last name, but he overcame a bunch of stuff and was a tech guy and created this community that's got a lot of momentum. And it's just reading those stories of people, person after person after person. And I've been back there a number of times. I remember I was having a lot of throat issues last year. Yeah. And, I lost my voice during one of my live events, which really freaked me out because I was like, oh my God, what if that happens again? And then my throat would get all hot. And I remember I was recording the audio version of my second book, and it would be like hurting as I did it. And I got really scared because I was like, wait, I like talk to people for a living, and then it took a while. I was in the structural side of it. I was working with a voice coach to work on the structure of my voice and how I use my throat and how I breathe and all that stuff. And I got really sucked into it. And then it was probably like 4 months into it, all this fear about my next live event. Like, oh no, what if I lose my voice there again? And then all of a sudden I was like, is this TMS? Is this not structural? And then I went onto that TMS wiki and I looked around and did a search, and sure enough, all kinds of people, throat pain, throat squeezing, this, that, difficulty swallowing. And I was just like, and then I started approaching it like that. And thankfully, when you've done this work for a while, you get fast and strong, like your blade is sharp. And so I like sliced through it, and within a matter of 2 months, it was gone. And I've had no issues for the last 8 months as a result of that. So each new thing. So that's a fantastic community. And I like to say this, TSW, the PG version would be This Stuff Works. I've already here once or twice. I can't help myself. So apologies for anyone with more refined sensibilities.
That's the passion coming out. That's the passion. Yeah, man. TSW indeed. It works it if you work it, if you apply it, that's gosh. Well, I could sit here and talk about this stuff all day. I mean, the mind body connection is huge. If you're the mind guy, I'm the body guy, and I think that they're a powerful bridge in there. But I think we got a good deal of content for people to grab onto, whether they're dealing with pain or something that's acute or chronic, and something that they've tried a few interventions, and the explanations of the PT, chiropractor, massage therapist, voodoo, medicine man are all sounding about the same level of confidence. Might be time to try something different.
Yeah, and especially if you're watching this, the full version of this, and you've made it this far, you should just do it. I mean, come on, like why are most people are going to drop.
You have a high tolerance, clearly.
Yeah. There's obviously an energetic resonance, because that's how I was with this stuff. As soon as I heard it, I was like, wait, I want to hear more. I want to hear more. And the people that aren't ready are like, fring, and they, and they go off. So if you've made it this far, you are called. And, this is something that I am super excited about. And, I want people to email me and let me know about their journeys. Cause anyone that it's just, I am extremely passionate about helping people with social anxiety and to become more confident, because that too is part of my journey. This one is even more gratifying in some ways when I hear about it, because I don't know, the level, maybe even the intensity of suffering and liberation that I experienced was even greater with this stuff than it was with the social anxiety. So there's some vicarious sense of like joy that I feel when I hear about someone being liberated in that way. So anyone wants to send me an email, you can do so. Dr. Aziz at socialconfidencecenter.com, whatever, we'll post it or something like that. There we go.
Yeah. Well, If you're liberating yourself physically or mentally, share it with Dr. Aziz and me. I love that stuff, man. Josh at trainingforwarriorsportland.com. I love to see anybody's transformation story and anybody who's taking action and getting out there, because at the end of the day, that's really what pain is. It's a signal to take action.
I love it. Bringing it full circle. That was awesome, man. Thanks for suggesting this and making it happen. And I'll see you tomorrow morning. Dark and early. All right, man.
All right, brother.